Yeah, sorry this one's a little bit later than normal. Yeah, honestly, I don't know what's going on with the Shaman King anime right now. Like when I was looking at the episode guide and countdown and what the episode list I use in order to keep track of when the episodes air. Apparently, I don't know what happened. This one I guess got delayed a bit. I don't know, but I guess pretty much for now, you just pretty much assume that all the Shaman King anime reviews are going to be happening on Monday rather than Friday like they usually do. Again, this might have just been a delay, but until further notice, you just pretty much assume that. Um, with that said, I guess the first thing to jump into is Hao's display of power at the beginning of the episode. Obviously, once again showing his insane display and mastery over his power, but even more so than that, I feel moments like this, are meant to show just how corrupted he has become. And while both the anime and the manga do a great job at portraying this, I do think the manga has a slight edge over the anime when it comes to particular moments like this. And it's honestly for the weirdest reason, which is Hao's eyes. Like if you read or have read if you read or have read the manga, you'll notice there are certain instances where you'll see what I can only describe as like a swirling void of darkness depicted in Hao's eyes, almost as if you're looking at the corruption within his soul. Whereas here, the anime takes kind of the more minimalist approach, and like there's no depiction of swirling corruption in himself. It's all just kind of like assumed just through his actions. And I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking here, but Shaman King is weirdly one of those series where the little details can add a lot to the experience and even perception of a character. And in Hao's case, that's definitely the case with Hao, honestly. But with that said, let's talk about the scene in the cafe between Hao and Yo, because that's a big moment where it's all but confirmed they literally are two halves of the same whole, and that at some point Yo will in fact have his spirit consumed by Hao. And this is one of those things where I do have to give the anime a lot more credit because on top of that one scene I feel being a lot more cinematically structured compared to how it was laid out in the manga. I feel that this is also one of those scenes that adds both a layer of sympathy to Hao's character and even sympathetic tragedy, I guess you could call it, to Yo's fate as a whole, in the sense where, yes, what Hao's doing, what he's going to achieve, is still terrible, and he must be stopped. But in knowing how truly inevitable Yo's fate is in all this, there is this kind of underlying feeling of acceptance and powerlessness, where you want to stop Yo and Hao from becoming one, but at the same time, we've learned so much about both these brothers up to this point that it's practically, you almost feel it's practically necessary for that to happen in order for either brother to feel like whole or complete again. They're just both Hao and Yo are literally just two halves of a single person, and and both are missing pieces, and both are just living lives where they're missing a piece of themselves. And I do love how the reboot and the manga do pretty much a lot more in order to make us emphasize this part a lot more, because with the OG anime it did feel like the reason for Yo and Hao to become one was strictly a power trip, whereas here, like, you really sympathize with the idea that them becoming one is almost kind of necessary, even if it is going to lead to the idea of how, like, stripping, like, gaining the power of the Great Spirit and all that. And I also really like how we get more insight into Hao's perception of the people he's gathered together, his followers, and his followers, allies, all that. Like, he's and how like a lot of the people he's gathered around him aren't just flunkies or expendable pawns. Like, how they are dependable allies just as much as Yo considers the people that have gathered around him to be friends. And it it is interesting how that adds such an ideological similarities but differences. Like how obviously is willing to sacrifice his allies, but it's one of those things where he accepts that they're willing to sacrifice himself for them as well. He's not just tricking them into sacrificing themselves. No, they are willing to sacrifice themselves because they genuinely believe in his cause. Um, of course, the great moments don't just stop there either, as we also see a brief but very powerful conversation between Ren and Yo, where Ren basically makes it clear that even if Yo is willing to try and reach out to Hao or try to cleanse him, Ren is not going to be willing to show any such mercy, and it shows that even if knows now of what he needs to do, he's still in some ways fumbling around in the dark, searching for answers on how to best achieve that goal, or at least trying to make the others understand. And yeah, the rest of the episode from there is basically the tournament match of Ren versus Yo, and carrying over from that conversation, I do like how the fight to decide who's ideological right about what to do about how is an actual tournament fight rather than a brief mini brawl where Yo is teaching Ren some kind of lesson, because it allows much more breathing room for the development. And just in general, I do like how we are starting to see Yo's kindness and good-hearted ideals kind of start to really bite him back in the ass with this fight against Ren, Horo, and Chaco, because his friend, like, it's one of those things where his friends have accepted that is who he is, that is who Yo is, but at the same time, in a situation like this where the world is at stake, that doesn't necessarily make it okay either. And as much as I sympathize with Yo's retort to them about why he wants to be Shaman King, about living in a world of peace and whatnot, it is something where that dream is losing a bit of power, a little bit of. Those words are becoming less like convincing and powerful, and at this point is sounding much more idealistic the closer we get to the fight with Hao. And I like how a lot of this fight was showing that even with the purifying power that Yo has obtained from Hell, what Ren, Horo, and Chaco are doing is they're trying to teach Yo whether or not he truly understands the severity of the stakes at hand. And even more so, I like how Yo in this episode is already learning through fighting Ren that just having that power isn't going to be enough. And despite what Yo may want to believe, Hao isn't necessarily gonna give him an inch either. Like he's not gonna allow Yo time to really just kind of talk it out or anything like what happened in the cafe. It is going to be a literal battle for survival, because Hao is intending to basically destroy the world. That's the one thing he's not just going to be able to talk him down from, unfortunately. Now, one thing I did find curious about this episode is that, as you know, I've had a lot of weird feelings on the pacing of the series. Sometimes it's not fast, and sometimes it's felt. Sometimes it's too, like, the adaptations are too fast. Sometimes it's not fast enough. And this episode is a weird case where, despite a lot of chapters being how many chapters were adapted, like we covered from chapters like I think 250 to 256, it felt like even more could have been adapted into the episode, in the sense where I don't know how to describe it, honestly. The episode itself just felt oddly stagnant. Again, despite knowing how much happened in it, it felt like there were moments that just kind of just stood still almost. Like, I don't know, it's weird, but I do imagine it's one of those things it's one of those things where there was just a lot of setup in this episode, and there was a lot of setup in this episode that was setting for a bigger moment, and next couple episodes is where it will start, where things are going to, again, like, at least feel like they're picking up. Like, again, a lot was adapted, but it felt like a little bit slow, I guess. I don't know. Again, it's weird. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of NA signing off. Later, everyone.